I'm the Vice President of World Congress, which is an international umbrella organization representing the collective interests of the Uyghur people. We work within different spaces, especially here at the EU, at the UN, and with national governments and civil society organizations. Today, we're joined by experts who are going to be speaking on a very dark day in history for Uyghurs as we mourn our rights or the erosion of our rights. So today marks the 70 years since the Chinese government has labeled us with this autonomous title. And so our speakers today will be speaking about how in the last 70 years, we've experienced the quick erosion of Uyghur rights from cultural erasure to a full-on genocide. So among us are community leaders, human rights defenders, politicians, and individuals who are witnessing the worst in human history, but also who are committed to making a greater impact and change. So for today's discussion, we'll start with MEP Ilhan Küchük, who has agreed to host this event, which is extremely important. So thank you again, Ilhan Küchük, for this. He is from Renew Europe, who will be, of course, opening this roundtable. So thank you so much for convening us on this important day.
Well, thank you for coming. First of all, it's a great pleasure to see so many friends around this table to discuss such an important issue. And let me remind you that the European Parliament is a constant supporter of the cause of the Uyghur people. This was the case in my first term. This was the case in my second term, and this will stay as one of the top priorities in my agenda in my third term. Why? Because the European Union was built on certain values, including human rights, dignity, and rule of law. What we see in China recently, and not only recently, is a deterioration of the fundamental rights of the European Union. And I believe those rights are not belonging only to the European Union, but they're belonging to the universal rights of human beings. So, as you said, Zumrek, we are politicians and we are here to provide a platform. We are here to write resolutions, to be the voice of voiceless, to vote in favor of people who are suffering in not democratic regimes, and to fight with authoritarian regimes that are leading the world certainly in a dark past of history. So together with NGOs, friends, certainly because we became friends after so many initiatives, we are here once again to remind ourselves that there is a cause that goes beyond political interests of different groups in the European Parliament, and we are here to show once again the unity and support the Uyghur people. You can count as usual on me, on my strong voice in the European Parliament. But also, I know that I can count on you, human rights defenders, for your constant fight for human dignity and rights and freedoms for people belonging to the Uyghur community, and not only that. Thank you.
Thank you once again. For opening this roundtable, but also for supporting Uyghur rights within the European Parliament in the last few years, together with other parliamentarians. Now it is my honor to introduce the President of the World Congress, Mr. Turguncan Alawudin, to deliver his opening remarks.
Distinguished members of Parliament, colleagues, esteemed experts, and friends. It's my honor to open today's roundtable. Today is a dark day in the history of Uyghur people, marking 70 years of repression under the name of the so-called Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region in 1955. When the Chinese authority declared autonomy for Uyghurs, it was present in the future. 70 years later, that promise became nothing more than a propaganda. Instead, in the last 70 years, Uyghurs have endured systemic discrimination, mass incarceration, religious persecution, cultural erasure, forced labor, and the dismantling of our right to exist as a people. This roundtable invites us to reflect on how the language of autonomy has been manipulated through mass total control and repression. It asks us to critically examine that has been lost our mother tongue in schools, our mosques and cemeteries, our scholars and community leaders. And what is this means for the international community's responsibility to act, because indeed the world cannot watch and do nothing. The erosion of Uyghur rights is not a recent development. It has been a stable course from the so-called autonomy to intensify surveillance and securitization, and finally to crimes that the UN and parliaments across the world now recognize as crimes against humanity and genocide. Yet today is not only about documenting repression, it's also about imagining and insisting on alternatives. The so-called autonomous title has never reflected reality for Uyghurs. Instead of protesting our right, it has been used as a facade to legitimize Beijing's control. It has means this stripping away of our political voice. For Uyghurs, autonomy has come to symbolize repression, not protection. That's why we reject this autonomy. Our discussion today will bring together policymakers and advocates to assess 70 years of the highly framework and to shape way forward, whether through accountability mechanisms, stronger international advocacy, or new frameworks for solidarity across communities. As we begin, I invite all of us to hold in mind those who cannot be present, the intellectuals silence, the families turn upon the millions living under suffocating control. Their absence is our call to action. Until they are free, none of us are free. Thank you for joining us today. I look forward to the rich discussion that will follow and to building strategies that honor both truth and justice for the Uyghur people. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Now turning to the roundtable discussion, I would like to welcome the president of the Uyghur Center for Democracy and Human Rights and also the former president of World Congress, Mr. Dolfonisa. You've been a pro-democracy activist and leader starting in the 80s when you were in your early days at Échilghan University. So perhaps if you could give us an overview of how the legal framework in East Turkestan and how the so-called autonomous laws and legislations that existed have paved the way to the slow genocide that we are witnessing today.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank Parliament members from Parliament here and Küchük and your amazing team to hosting this wonderful event today. And also, I'd like to announce here today is, as Zumratai saying, is a morning day for us. Is the Chinese Republic of China established 76 years, and also same time 70 years so-called anniversary of also Uyghur Autonomous Region. This is the announcement, but I would like to announce yesterday we lost one of the very important figure of the Uyghur movement, Farhat Muhammad. He dedicated his whole entire life to the Uyghur movement, and he was the vice president of the World Uyghur Congress, and he was the several positions in the Uyghur movement since the 30 years, but he was passed away, 61 years old. Yesterday, all the Uyghur community around the world, and we are mourning his passed away. And in Munich, in the center of the World Uyghur Congress head office, we organized some ceremony of his. So it is a big loss for us. We all remember him. Yeah. And the homeland of the Uyghurs in East Turkestan was designed by the Chinese government as a Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region in October 1, 1955. Today marks 70 years of the so-called autonomous status. The Chinese government called the major celebration to mark this occasion. Maybe some of you already awareness last week, Chinese President Xi Jinping arrived to the Urumqi, so-called Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region in East Turkestan to celebrate for 70 years. So they are talking about whole beautiful life of the Uyghurs in the 70 years. Yes. However, it is important to emphasize following point. So-called Uyghur Autonomous Region declared on October 1st, 1955, was never established as an institution based of free will of Uyghur as an ethnic group in East Turkestan. It is slowly on the governance system forcefully imposed by the Chinese Communist Party to the Uyghur people. In 1949, East Turkestan was occupied by the Chinese Communist Army. And following the occupation, armed and ideological resistance continued in the region. During this period, the Chinese government declared autonomy status in order to suppress Uyghur independent demands and to establish its own control. This proposal by the Chinese Premier Zhong Enlai on establishment Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region was adopted by Standing Committee of China National People's Congress September 13, 1955. Then was declared Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region October 1, 1955. However, no concrete and clear legal framework was provided to support autonomy at that time. It is declaration. Just declaration, but empty, nothing inside. After 29 years later, only on May 31, 1984, Chinese National People's Congress passed a law on regional national autonomy. This law consisted 67 articles, theoretically recognized political, economic, cultural, religious rights in the autonomous region. Granted them established legislative, administrative, and legal resource management power under the law. Within this framework of this law, 5 separate institutions were established, so-called Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region. One is Communist Party of China, Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region Party Committee. Second is Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region People's Government. Three Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region People's Congress regional legislators. Four Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region Political Consultative Conference. Five Xinjiang Protection Construction Code. All through this institution appeal equality in the right law. In practice, the highest decision making authority is Chinese Communist Party Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Regional Party Committee. In other words, while there are 5 institutions on paper, actual decision making power rests entirely this party committee. Thus, under 67 Article Autonomy Law adopted in May 1984, politically, economically, culturally, religious rights were theoretically recognized, but practically they have not been implemented. Even were implemented, only a few limited versions has been realized. We can say between of the Mao died between end of 1970s or beginning of 1980s until 1990, around 10-11 years, we have seen very little sign of this autonomy of the implementation. The Chinese government has constantly showcased the law for its own purpose rather than ensuring general autonomy. Today, I'd like to emphasize here, Professor Ilhan Tokti. He demands only this Chinese, according to the Chinese constitution, autonomous law, he demands to implement this law. But today, he's a long-life president, and because separatism. So he's Sakharov Prize winners. So I'd like to call today, and European Parliament member, have a responsibility to freeze Ilhan Tokti. It's important, it's an essential work for the European institution, particularly European Parliament. So according to this autonomic law, I can compare some. There is some, as I say, political laws. For example, Article 51 and 52 theoretically guaranteed this autonomous region has its own regional People's Congress and the People's Government on the paper. Executive position, particularly governor and the key post, should be held by local ethnic group, Uyghurs. For example, governor should be Uyghurs. Every ethnic group has a right to participate in state affairs and the local democratic election. But in the practically, all political authority is concentrated in the hand Chinese Communist Party Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region Party Secretary. He is Chinese. The governor and the other administrative organs have no real decision-making power. Local mechanism operate only within the framework party secretary. Officials who are not party members, especially Uyghur Kazakh, cannot exercise decision-maker or implement policy. Over the 90% of party officials are Chinese. Even the administration as well. Uyghur Kazakh are minimally represented. No action can be taken without party secretary approval. Second, economic and social rights. According to the autonomic law, Article 10 and 23, theoretically, the region can formulate its own economic development plans and utilize its natural resource. Revenues should be primarily be used for the welfare for the local population. But in the practically, Chinese government favors Chinese national economically. Uyghur, Kazakh, and other ethnic groups face serious discrimination despite legally recognized autonomous rights. Discrimination presents the workplace, especially since 2008, young Uyghurs have been relocated to the other Chinese province as a cheap labor. Forced labor continue. Today, 25% global cotton product, over 45 raw material of the solar panel, and raw material of the battery, and a significant portion of the products of the ketchup, tomatoes industry,
all common Uyghur first level. 3. Call from an education law. Article 37. Theoretically, local language, Uyghur language, should be used in official institution and education. There is a right to mother tongue education. Textbook should be prepared in the local language, Uyghur language. Cultural heritage and ethnic tradition should be preserved. This is theoretically on the law. But practically, under bilingual education program, Uyghur language education has been completely limited. Government aims to synchronization Uyghur national education. Since 2004, education has been conducted primarily in China, Chinese language. Before the 2004, for example, when I was a student in Xinjiang University, this was Uyghur Kazakh students and teaching language in Uyghurs, Chinese students Chinese language. But since 2004, step by step today, from kindergarten to the university, all the Chinese language. But China and use is so-called bilingual education system. On September 5, 2009, even hundreds of Uyghur language websites were shut down, their administration arrested, sentenced, and many, more than 100 still is closed, banned. Uyghur language activists like Abdul Ayub, he is in Norway. 2013, he opened kindergarten, Uyghur mother tongue kindergarten. Because of this, he sentenced and stayed 5 years in the jail. 4. Religious freedom, religious right. Article 11. Theoretically, all people have right to free practical their religions. Peace worship should be protected, religious leader training, religious institution operated. But in the practically, religious freedom was severely restricted. Between 2017 to 2020, about 8,000 mosques completely demolished, another 8,000 mosques partly destroyed. This is all well documented by the ASPI, Australian Strategic Policy Institute. And the Imam, Islamic name, also mosques are banned. Hijab, beard as religious symbol are forbidden. Fasting, praying, religious marriage, funeral, this is all banned today. You know, is one of the important Islamic figure, scholar, Muhammad Salih. He is the age 82 years old. He was arrested, and after 3 months later, 2018 February, he died in the custody. His crime was that he translated Quran from Arabic to the Uyghur language in order by the Chinese government, 1980s. After 30 years later, it was the crime, and he was passed in the jail. 5. Right under a natural resource. Article 62. Theoretically, region can manage its own resource. Most revenues should be allocated for the local development. In the practically, East Turkestan, as you know, there is a huge gold, uranium, gas, and the other resource. This is all controlled by the central government of China. Uyghur Kazakh community, there's virtually no benefit from this resource. This is all guaranteed by the autonomic law, but in the practice, completely different. Conclusion. So-called autonomy granted by the Chinese government under the name of the Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region is nothing more than political mask. In reality, it serves to arrest Uyghur identity, forcibly assimilated the Uyghur people, and then permanently annex East Turkestan as a Chinese territory. Historians show us very clearly whether under Manchu Empire or Kuomintang nationalist Chinese regime or Chinese Communist Party regime, none of the promise made the people of East Turkestan were ever fulfilled. Each Chinese regime attempted to eliminate the political and the cultural right of Uyghur people. At the founding of the East Turkestan Republic 1944, communist occupation of 1949, the declaration of the autonomy in 1955, Uyghurs have been subjected systematically operation, their identity eroded, and their freedom crushed under the weight of state control. Since Xi Jinping came to power 2013, the policy have escalated into full-scale campaign of the genocide. United Nations assessment, independent investigations, Uyghur tribunal verdicts, international reports, and the recognition of Uyghur genocide and crime against humanity by 11 parliaments, including European Parliament. Documents a shocking reality, mass arbitrary detention, forced labor, birth control, and the destruction Uyghur cultural heritage. In the face is ongoing atrocity, it has become undeniable. There is no lasting path for the Uyghur to safeguard their identity, language, culture, and will exist as a result through independent countries, state. The international community must not longer remain silent. It must recognize this crime for what they are, upholding international law and respect Uyghur people's right of determination, right of self-determination according to international law. Support for this fundamental right is not matter of the choice, it is moral and political obligation, all policymakers and all states. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Isa. I think you really outlined well that the legal framework actually existed to grant Uyghurs all of these rights, but in practice, we have not seen any implementation of the laws that are in question. And as we're saying this, I just wanted to also, I think, really insist on the last one that you've raised on how these abuses, especially the abuses that we are seeing in the last 8 years, have been consistently raised at every single multilateral platform, whether it's here at the EU or at the UN. It's been raised by government officials, by state and different governments. And there have been multiple reports, including UN reports from the High Commissioner's Office from 2022, but also UN experts have been consistently raising it as well on the myriad of human rights violations that are taking place now in Kyrgyzstan. And just as we speak here today, there was a new public statement by UN experts condemning the cultural oppression of Uyghurs, specifically on the increasing criminalization of Uyghur and Uyghur expression in China, highlighting the case of Rahila Dawood and Yashar, another cultural figure. And I think over their disappearance, of course. And I think that is really telling that at this moment, we still have millions of people that are detained in camps, just simply exist for their ethnic and religious identity. And I think that's been something that that's been criminalized by the Chinese state. So turning to our next speaker, Mr. Wang, who was a Chinese police officer. He spent several months in the region in 2018, tasked with investigating political and religious suspects. He recalled that on arrival, he was immediately dispatched on arrest grounds. He also added that during his short time in the Uyghur homeland, 300,000 Uyghurs were detained, including entire villages, which also is, by the way, one of the highest prison rates in the world. He has also witnessed firsthand the heavy repression in the Uyghur homeland, including all of the surveillance technologies that were deployed to monitor Uyghurs' daily life. So, Mr. Wang, if you could tell us about your experience working in the region at the peak of the crisis. And of course, his statement will be interpreted by our interpreter, Abza.
我要讲一讲我经历过的，我见过的，没有什么特殊的吧。就是从中华人民共和国建立这个新疆维吾尔自治区70年来， 他就把这个就是建立了这个司法建设兵团，它是众所周知的。
I'm going to tell about my own personal experience in the Uyghur region, and it all starts from the occupation of the Uyghur region by the Chinese People's Liberation Army and the establishment of the Échilghan construction and the production core.
然后所以把这几十万的军队啊，还有这些他认为反革命还有囚犯呐、这些罪犯都弄到新疆去了。然后呢，这70年里头，我也是自己看了一下子吧，这个历史，这移民了近2000万人口，从中国内地。然后实际上呢，
And after this establishment, the Chinese government migrated the Chinese, not only in military, also the criminals, prisoners of the Chinese in the Chinese provinces to the Uyghur regions.
实际上呢，这些就是一些殖民化，它这个掠夺的这个资源。前几天我看到新闻里边，就是说全国的这个新闻都有，把这个新疆的风力电力全都到浙江去了。那这个这不是一种掠夺吗？
And the whole number of the population migrated from the Chinese inner provinces to the Uyghur region exceeds 20 million. And this is solely for the purpose of colonization and the plunder of the resource in the Uyghur region. And I read the whole history in very thorough and detailed way. And even very recently, China is openly saying that they are going to transfer the electricity from the Uyghur region even to Zhejiang province, and which is very far away from the Uyghur region.
到这些20年了呢，让我们中华人民共和国呢，在这个大范围的在这个新疆呢，在用全国的这个在采取了对口援疆，比如说教育口学校就派出老师援疆。然后呢，就我来说呢，我就说公安部这个就是全部这个公安部和中共中央组织部牵头，把这个包括公安部还有全国各地的这个公安厅的业务分成警种，进行援助这个新疆公安机关的这个工作。
Over the past 2 decades, a significant amount of so-called emotional targeted assistance has been provided to Xinjiang for the public security sector by the Ministry of Public Security and the Organization Department of the Central Committee of the Communist Party of China. Various departments of the Ministry of Public Security and the provincial public security bureaus across mainland China have dispatched batches of police officers from various police forces to public security bureaus in all prefectures and autonomous regions of Xinjiang.
中国共产党的政府呢，是为什么要这么做呢？是因为20年前就有人提出，他们所谓的专家，他们是担心新疆出现车臣式的这种战争的这个情况，所以说他们大规模的采取了这种对口援疆的措施。
The reason for the implementation of targeted assistance, so-called targeted assistance policy, to the Xinjiang region is because even 20 years ago, before there are Chinese experts talking about the possibility of a war like what happened in Chechnya in Russia.
然后这个是我在原来在公安部的这个杂志上，我美国人民公安杂志上，我看到这个有人写过这篇论文。
And I also personally read about related articles on on a paper, formal paper released by the Police Academy.
然后呢，他进一步为了加强这个所谓的这个，就是为了控制维吾尔人。 然后呢，在全国成立了由公安部牵头了，成立了公安部反恐部工作局，在各个公安厅成立了反恐部的工作总队，在各个地市成立了反恐部工作支队。
So they further strengthened the domestic security, particularly by establishing special investigative units under the command of the Public Security Bureau's Counterterrorism Bureau with the establishment of detachments in prefectures and cities. These so-called special investigative units are empowered to exercise broad investigative powers.
然后呢，他这20-30年来吧，他在新疆成立过这个叫特别侦察部门。所谓特别侦察部门呢，是从政治保卫部门里头单独分出去这个一个部门。他这个所谓特别侦察的手段呢，就是不受法律约束。什么我这个他所谓的这个法律啊、公安机关办理程序案件规定的刑法、刑事法，我都不用执行。
The so-called special investigative units of the police force in the Uyghur Autonomous Region, they have the power of arbitrary power of secret detentions and to conduct secret interrogation and other technical means without any legal restrictions.
然后他这种的权力非常大，他可以就是说，他不受检察机关批准，他就可以随意性拘留，不要逮捕，因为逮捕是一个经过检察院的，他就随意性拘留。他自己成立了很多这个反恐所谓的反恐基地啊，他自己在里边，他这个自己的部门自己审讯、自己开押，不用送到这个地方公安局的看守所。
So they have invested significantly in establishing separate detention facilities, eliminating the need to send detainees to regular detention centers, and that they don't have any legal obligation to get any order from the prosecutor.
这样呢，他就是所谓的他这个增加他的秘密性，他不用让别人知道外界他这个里面发生了些什么侦查手段呢？
And so one of the most important reasons for doing this is keep everything in secret and do not need any, they don't need to expose it.
然后他这种，比如说我们要采取技术手段呢，要监听手机啊，或者是用网络安全保卫监控一些手机的软件了。比如我要在内地的公安机关，我要层层审批，但是我在这个新疆这个部门，它不用那么严格。他们很多就是很有衔接的部门，随时就可以做到这个对人进行对这些所谓嫌疑人进行这个网络的技术手段呢，监听电话了，监听他们短信了，调取他们的电话清单这些技术手段。
By all means of technical and methods, they analyze the message and also the phone conversations of the Uyghur people and without any approval from the upper authority. And if in the Chinese inner Chinese provinces, and this kind of surveillance practice needs to be approved by many authorities, but in Uyghur region, the secret detective police force has their own power to decide this.
然后他在这个喀什啊，在新疆都设置有这个反恐怖培训基地。
And they also established the anti-terrorism training bases in cities like Kashgar.
然后他都由公安部的，就比如说公安部的反恐部工作局，他应该在北京，但实际上他的工作地点是在新疆。
And the anti-terrorism police force actually it could be based in Beijing, but in practice it's solely based in the Uyghur region.
然后呢，就是说他这个新疆警察学院的学生吧，新疆警察学院的学生只要毕业了入警以后，他必须得当5年特警。
The Xinjiang Police Academy graduates are the only ones who must serve as special police officers for 5 years before being recruited, leading many to use their connections to transfer departments.
所以说，新疆特警是最多的地方，就是新疆的维吾尔自治区公安厅，它有特警总队，而在我的家乡，它这个是没有特警总队的编制的。
So, Xinjiang is the only region with the largest number of special police officers, and this police unit does not even exist in my homeland in China.
所有的维吾尔那就是众所周知，他这个我说的也不是什么新闻吧，他离开新疆，他必须得办一个出疆证， 就是要经过他这所在的户口所在地的片警和社区同意。
And actually, this is not a news. All Uyghurs living in Xinjiang, it's been a practice in there for many years. All Uyghurs living in Xinjiang must obtain approval from their local police and community, and obtain a so-called Xinjiang exit permit before they can work in the Chinese region.
所谓出洋证呢，也不是什么正式法律，都是这个一种他当地的一种措施吧。然后让这个人呢，不管是什么理由，只要是维吾尔人离开新疆到内地去，他都要这个签署一个不帮助就是分离祖国的这个保证书。
And this practice of Xinjiang exit permit has no any legal basis in Chinese law, and this permit is not a formal legal requirement. But in practice, everyone leaves the Uyghur region should obtain that paper, and it requires approval from the local government where their household registration is registered. They call it in Chinese 户口, and everyone has their 户口 registration. And before going to any Chinese region, you have to get approval from the local government and police office, get that formal document, and then you will be able to take on the train.
然后呢，维吾尔人只要进入内地呢，他这个公安内吧，他就会给，不管你乘坐什么交通工具，飞机也好，火车也好，一到站，他马上就给这个公安内网就推送了个警报到这个火车站派出所、机场派出所，就有人在这等着检查核查，这所谓核查吧。
So local police, the Chinese police and the community members can contact these Uyghurs at any time, even after leaving Xinjiang. And they must also sign a written guarantee pledging not to participate in any kind of terrorist activities, and that will help split the motherland. And regardless of the mode of the transportation used by the Uyghurs entering the mainland China, as long as they purchase tickets using the ID cards, and there is no way you can purchase tickets except using your ID cards. And then public security departments at the airport and train station at their destination will issue an alert on the public security intranet. And regardless of who you are, actually, as long as you come from that region to the Chinese mainland region, and you have to alert it that there is going to be a investigation or interrogation.
然后呢，比如说他到达了这个，比如说他经过了这个火车站这个核查了，没问题。然后呢，他到这个工作的地方了，工作地方暂住地，他还要到这个派出所，还要去汇报，还要办一个居住证，然后呢，再要把他所有的信息，他的手机号、手机信的，甚至把信用卡啥的都有读取，然后把他的所有的社交的网号啊，比如说微信呢、QQ号，所有信息录入。 有的还要这个取 DNA， 然后录入指纹，然后呢，你才能在这个地方正常的工作生活。
And even after this long and time-consuming questioning at the airport or stations, and regardless of whether they have a Xinjiang exit permit or not, they will be subjected to a very comprehensive and rigorous inspection after they reach their workplace, and this includes details about their purpose of living in Xinjiang, and is even more strict than the U.S. border and custom control. And you have to share your personal network and social media report and a lot of other things, and even taking your fingerprint and the DNA information. And then you have to apply for a residence permit in the inner Chinese province. Inner Chinese region.
我所说这些都已经是很长时间，10几年前已经实行了，所以这个就是说，而且每年的办公演习都把维吾尔假想敌都是维吾尔人，然后这就是我觉得这个怎么能说是中华人民共和国把这个维吾尔人当同胞呢？
And this kind of practice is being implemented in the region for more than decades, and it's not a news. And actually, the Chinese government saying that the Uyghurs also a part of the Chinese nation, and we are compatriots with Uyghurs. But how come you can treat your compatriots with this kind of discrimination policies?
所以说呢，我也希望，我只是讲出我这个经历和见过的一些事情，然后我也不是什么演员，也没有人给我钱雇我，然后我希望维吾尔人呢能得到一个自由公平的一个社会。
So I'm here not speaking about this not because anyone paid me or I'm not a member of any organization, but I just want to mention that there is a lot more happening in the region, and I just want the Uyghurs to be given their rights and freedom as quick as possible. Thank you very much.
Once again, to Mr. Wong, I think it takes a lot of courage to come up as a whistleblower, especially at the hands of the Chinese Communist Party. And I think one thing that is notable here is that Mr. Wong also has testified for the first time during the Uyghur Tribunal, which took place in London in 2021, at the call of Sir Geoffrey Nice, who was the persecutor of Milosevic. And for his testimony during the tribunal, he was harassed and monitored also by the Chinese government, which indicates the level of repression when you're trying to expose China's crimes, even from abroad. And I think he also put a lot of emphasis on the restrictions on movement for Uyghurs, which is something that is continuing today, where Uyghurs are, their passport is tightly controlled. So there's a weaponization of passport. Uyghurs' movement is restricted within the homeland, but also outside. They cannot travel when they want. So Uyghurs don't actually own passports. They have to apply. If they want to go outside of the country, they have to apply to their local police stations to secure a passport even. So that right is not intrinsic for it's not given. It's something that they have to fight for, and in a lot of cases unsuccessfully. Before we move to the next speaker, I know MEP Küchük has to go for another meeting, so we just want to also express our thanks and gratitude, and I believe our president has a small present for you. Once again, thank you for your commitment and your time. So we'll continue with the roundtable, and we'll now move to Ms. Kazu Siddiq, who is a former Chinese language teacher who was forcibly sent to teach Mandarin in the camps in 2017 by the Chinese authorities. During that time, she has witnessed various horrors within the wide network of the camps. She's been testifying in various platforms before governments, parliaments, national media, international media since 2019 after fleeing China for the Netherlands, where she resides now. So we'll hear from her about what she's witnessed within these, the inside of the camps. And I'll be doing the introduction.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is John from Ilhan Initiative. Today we are here to commemorate the 70 years of autonomous region, Uyghur autonomous region. In 2016,
Pakistan'da cezalar şahidi kalmışlık bilmem. Bilen olan mükemmel bakımlara kırdırak.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Atalmish Aptonomiyening. I am from Eastern Pakistan, and I am glad to be here.
Ben vatanımızda 28 yıl Kıbrıs dersi kuşluk kıldım. 2017 yıldan başlayıp Pırjın'a yakın kamplarına mecbur olarak Kıbrıs dersi çıkıverdim.
I was a Mandarin teacher for 28 years in Urumqi, and in 2017, I was forcibly sent by the Chinese authorities to teach in the Échilghan camps for almost a year.
2017 yıl 3. ayın 9. ayında bana bu Urumqi'deki Sanfangu Tağlısı okuduğum evde kampsında 6 ay Kıbrıs dersi ettim.
From March to September 2017, I was sent to this men's detention camp in Urumqi, where I spent 6 months teaching Mandarin.
Bu yerge yetimlikten artık yaş kıran yigitler evde kamplangan bulup, ular her bir kadrlarda turist smokun üstüde 30'dan 40'a kısıtlışı başarılı.
In this facility, this camp was detaining almost over 7,000 Uyghur men who were all crammed in small cells. They were 40 to 50 people in one cell.
Hocam çiftler hakimiyeti bu yana Atalmish terbiyeler ortaydı. Ameliyata bir yatıştılar. Bana ışıklar futbol izlenecek kişilerden dalda. Hakkam küçük orunluklardan közlerde yaş edemcek laboratuvar ders almayı.
The Chinese government officially labels these camps as re-education centers. However, these are not re-education centers. I witnessed many horrors within the camps where I've seen men who were shackled at their feet and who were sitting on small chairs.
Bunlar 6 ay jarayonida biron butun oyunchilarga tushunib bakıl yok. Hatta ki her birlik tanıklığa bir tane Xitoyning o'zida qurish o'rgatish için.
During my 6 months there, I have not seen anyone being allowed to take a shower, and they were only fed very little food, including porridge and some sort of bun.
Olayına üstügeçten numaralar akıllı çağrıldı, sonra çıktı. Sonra jarayonda mana shunda elektronda kaltak, elektronda kalpa, elektronda kalpa, ingas yapardı.
And the detainees were usually called out by their numbers, not their names. And during interrogations, they would use different torture tools, including the electric baton, electric cast, electric gloves, and the tiger chair.
Ben yana 2017 yılından başlayıp Urumqi'de satılmayan Uyghur kurulgan Kıbrıs kampsında bir yerden altta yarattım. Bana henüz görülen şey Şenkel'den kurulgan kampı oldu. Bu yerde kurulduğunda artık Uyghur kızlarına kampı.
And in September 2017, I was transferred to a women's camp where I spent 6 months teaching Mandarin Chinese speaking detainees. And this facility held up to 10,000 Uyghur women and girls.
Spor kızlarında %90% 18 yaştan 40 yaşça, %10% 40 yaşta yukarı 70-80 yaşlılar var.
90% of the women who were detained there were between the age of 18 and 40, and there were also women from their 40s to 70s.
Bu yer kızaylarının Xitay saçlarının mecbur dışında her bu soraklar uçuna durdu. Ulanın çarşı bütünle düşürülgen, üstü mahpus kiyim var. Yanı sorak cereyanlar derslençliklerle basmışlar uçuna durdu.
The women detainees were also tortured in various ways, and all of their heads were shaved.
Bu yerde yana çıkın kızaylarlar her fıl şekildeki yüzük saldırış tutulmaz kapasiteye yol tutuldu.
The women were also abused in various ways. They were raped. A lot of them were also forcibly sterilized.
Bunun da statistikada Uyghur kızaylarının üyüge manım şunda Atalmish Xitay koşmak tutkada oradaşlarından mı? Bunlar şunların siyasi asasen beşli buluşlarını birlikte tamak etiş, birlikte tamak yiyiş, birlikte yürüyüş, birlikte seyirlik ediş, hatta birlikte çıkıbari siyasi asasen şu Uyghur üyelerde depsençikler uçuraktırdır.
And outside of the caste system, the Uyghur families also were subjected to this family pairing program, which is a program where Chinese officials are sent to Uyghur homes where they monitor Uyghur families. And there is basically a policy of doing 5 different activities with these families, including cooking together, eating together, exercising together, even sometimes sleeping together, which often led to various abuses.
Yetmecedimizde nurgulağa bu şirket bir kurban olup, yani bu Uyghur kız yigitler mecbur alda kullan geçsebildi.
Beyond that, there were also forced labor factories where Uyghur men and women were forced to work in these factories in forced labor conditions.
Ben 2019 yılda Konya'da Gollandiya garajdan kızımla yardıkta ve özellikle Teşkilatlarından Gollandiya'ya kevaldım. Ama vatanımızda şu kırgınlık çözülüyor. Kaldılandırılan tıkı takıldı diyor. Ama Xitay hükümeti hazır. Bu da siyaset olarak kuşatkanda kalan bilen Çin'den geçirdi. Müslüman devletlerdeki hatta Yawropa devletlerdeki jurnalistlerine hatta aktivistlerine ve denge yalgan malzemelerinde yalgan caylarını köstü. Her çok yalgan açtı kapatıldı. Bunun katı işler yapmamız gerek. Ahırda Yawropa Parlament'inden bu Uyghur ırkı kırgınçılığa bu meselelerini kaybettiğini tertip erkelip şu çağrısını kalan kırılıp Uyghur halkımızga ilgi çıkışını şimdi gündem ümit kılmak. Hemen olarak.
In October 2019, I was able to flee China to settle in the Netherlands where my daughter is. Although I was able to leave, millions of Uyghurs were left behind. They are still suffering in this system of oppression, in this system of genocide. And we must be the voice for them. The Chinese government over the last few years has spent a lot of resources in trying to portray this image of a region that is positive and that they're giving to international community, for example, head of states, journalists, bloggers, and others to show a propaganda that no one will believe. This is why I urge the European Parliament to act now to save these millions of Uyghurs and to speak on their behalf. Thank you. Thank you, Parlamént. I think this is a really good segue into our next speaker. But just before we do that, I think Kaldunu's testimony offers us a lot of details on how the implementation of these genocidal policies are taking place or have taken place in the last few years, and also the consequences of her public advocacy, of her testimonies in the free world, because that has cost her marriage. She left that in her testimony today, but she was basically forced to divorce her husband after leaving because she became this public figure carrying out this advocacy. So she has lived the consequences of that. She continues to do that. Her family has paid a heavy price for this. So again, it takes a lot of courage and bravery to carry on this work. So thank you for all of your So moving on to our last speaker for today, we have Mr. Taha Yassin, who's an independent researcher who has traveled to East Turkestan in May, so just recently, and witnessed the current situation, how it looks like, and how the English propaganda is taking place, and affecting the locals as well. So Mr. Taha Yassin, I would love if you could share some of your reflections and also observations when you were in East Turkestan, and perhaps if we could get the PowerPoint presentation. Thank you.
Good morning, dear members of the Parliament and dear guests. My name is Taha Yassin, and I'm from Istanbul. Today, I'm not speaking as a politician. I am speaking as an independent researcher who visited cities in East Turkestan in this May. Today, what I bring to you is not theory. It is what I saw there. I spent around 2 weeks in 2 cities of East Turkestan. First one, the Turpan, and the second one, the capital, Qurultiyining. What I saw was not a simple restriction. It was the systematic attempt to erase the Uyghur identity. The first, the most are closed. Those that are open operate only under super strict control. At every entrance, officials demanded my passport and took pictures of my passport before allowing me inside. Cravers know that they are registered and they are threats. Inside the mosque, I saw mostly elderly men. The young people were absent, afraid of being marked, because if they have been seen as a prayer, after that they will be punished. And imams talk about government slogans and the communist instead of Quran. And also I recorded videos of all of these things, and you can watch as well. The mosque has been emptied of praying and turned into a propaganda tool. The second, the streets. Not a single woman in headscarf or hijab. The disappearance of religious dress from public life is not normal. It is enforced. And also, every street, every square, or every corner has been watched by cameras. Entire cities have become a zone of surveillance. In many areas, I saw face recognition systems were working, tracking, and identifying the people by passing them. And third, I spoke with people. They are making business there. The foreign businessman who has been living there for them 10 years and told me clearly like this. Sometimes I remember Uyghur people are simply taken from streets and they disappear. Then we couldn't get any news from them. These are not isolated fears. They are the daily reality shared by people who cannot speak clearly. These experiences reveal a systematic effort to erase Uyghurs' people, cultural, and religious identity. This is not a private or internal policy. It is the, as we told, human rights crisis. Therefore, I respectfully call on this parliament to ask for free access for independent researchers and journalists to see the situation directly and give more support to diaspora communities and independent researchers who take risks to share these stories. And I can't stand here because those people cannot stand. And their silence is not a just cry. It's a cry for help. And we shouldn't just stay silent. We need to take action together. And thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Taha. Because of time, will be moving on, but I would urge everyone to have also separate conversations with Taha because I think and also urge to watch these videos that were uploaded on YouTube as well. So we're happy to also share that. So now I would like to move on to the Q&A session where we would welcome any kind of questions or comments from the audience present today. So feel free to raise your hands. So perhaps we'll start with Mary and then into the others.
I go with my okay. Thank you very much for organizing this conversation. It's extremely important. We have all written, talked, heard about the concentration camps where the Uyghurs have been forced to work, etc. There were many figures that were given, and they're very hard to implement because we don't know exactly if it's 1 billion people, etc. But what is most important now is to know what is going on now. We have some information, well, quite a lot of information until 2021, especially thanks to Afghanans who did the wonderful work on that. But it's really hard to talk to the press now and give them new information, because what is going on now? We hear that many Uyghurs who have been so-called re-educated to do this and that kind of work are being sent away in Shandong, in Guangdong, in all sorts of inner provinces where they lack now workforce. So if anybody could give us up-to-date information, that would be very precious. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. I welcome to everyone to share contact details with Mary as well. It's definitely something that we all are struggling with organizationally as well. I think the lack of access to information gives us, quite a lot of indication about the state of things. As you said, Adrian Zen was a key researcher, kind of unveiling a lot of the atrocities in terms of statistics, but also numbers, especially when it comes to the forced sterilization, for example. But when a lot of researchers in the West have started publishing, or even just outside of China started publishing research papers on specific issues like birth control policies or the opportunity detention, the Chinese government has then stopped publishing certain information that were previously available. For example, the Chinese government used to publish in their yearly statistics the natality rate in each province, so including the Uyghur, including in East Turkestan, they would publish it every year. But after all the scrutiny and the research that came out on forced sterilization policies, the Chinese government completely stopped publishing these figures just for East Turkestan. So if you look at it for the whole of China, you have these numbers and statistics still available, but not for the Uyghur homeland. So that also is, I think, it is quite telling. Intizat. Please use your microphone. Okay. For Intizat, can you just wait because you already spoke? Yeah. Intizat, yes.
Yes.
Cool. Thank you for that, Samratai. Thank you everyone for being here. I'll just keep mine nice and short as possible. Yeah, I just want to start off by saying to the MPs, obviously Ilhan is not here, but on behalf of the entire Uyghur global community, we see the work that you're doing, and raising your voice against a government like China is tough, can be tough, but necessary. So we are immensely proud of you for being our voice. My name is Intizar. I was born and raised in Australia, but my background is Uyghur, and I have a lot of experience with Australian politics. I recently moved to Europe, and I work closely with the World Uyghur Congress now, and I'm happy to be here. I just wanted to highlight that this is not only an Uyghur issue; it's a European and global human rights issue. As China's influence grows in the world, it threatens European security, values, and independence. In Australia, when I worked alongside Australian politicians, we could see the Chinese government's infiltration in our politics. The way they work, the way the Chinese government works is very sneaky. But it's good you have the EU, so we can all work together. But we have to be on the same page about the true face of China, who they really are, and what they're really doing in the world. And that means we need to work on raising and maintaining awareness and gathering more support from other European Parliament members. And I wonder how we can do that. Because if China can get away with committing a genocide to an entire nation and lie to the world about it, and if they can get away with bullying other countries as well, threatening their sovereignty, and weaponizing economic pressure to silence criticism and still face no consequences, then what else are they capable of? China has shown itself to be a bully on the global stage, using economic coercion, political pressure, and even threats to silence dissent and force compliance. If you can accept that a partner of yours can get away with doing something so violent and murderous, and then continue business with them as usual, then are we accepting that they can use violence as a tool anywhere? Are we indirectly giving them permission to behave the way they want to behave? Are we effectively saying that state-sponsored violence, repression, and intimidation are acceptable tools of violence? No, we cannot send that message, especially for the next generations to come. I believe we are stronger than that, but this is the kind of people that we are dealing with. Every time we choose engagement with the Chinese Communist Party without accountability, we undermine the principles the European Parliament stands for. So let's draw a line and bring this into a hot topic in Parliament and gather more support from European Parliament members, that we are aware of the Chinese government's ill behaviour towards Uyghurs, but also their bullying type behaviour towards other countries. That we will not tolerate it and we will not be complicit through silence or inaction. I look forward to hearing what the rest of you have to say and your proposals. I do believe that if we stay united, especially in the EU, confronting this challenge, that we will achieve great traction. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Ilhan, for reminding us of the threat that China poses not only to the sovereignty of these governments and nations, but also to the international order as we know of it now. And I think it's also a good reminder for the European Parliament, the EU institutions, to take tangible action, because I think over the years we've seen how there have been multiple initiatives within the Parliament. There have been different reports, there have been multiple urgent resolutions highlighting individual cases, especially the case of Ilhan, Sakharov laureate, but also other cases, as well as just last in February, the refoulement of 40 Uyghur refugees from Thailand. All of these resolutions and reports have been published and taken, but we're still lacking tangible results. So I think this is the moment where the European Parliament needs to act and to stand in solidarity with the Uyghur people who have been enduring a silence genocide since 2017. And that also goes for everyone who is in the ecosystem, whether it's civil society partners, and media, or other people who can, stakeholders who can also help as well. Moving on to Anderson.
I wanted to add something to what we discussed. As we all know, Ilhan totally knew ahead of time in 2000, around 2010, even before, that more separation will be coming, because it was really decided at the Central Committee of the CCP before that. Then, because of that, he decided to bring the Uyghur human rights issue lawfully with the Chinese law and constitution. He asked, first of all, to implement the so-called autonomy laws, which my colleague Dr. Isa mentioned. There are a lot of economic, political and other rights for Uyghurs which have not been implemented. It was only kept on paper. And with this proposal, he got support from Chinese intellectuals. He got support from Europe because he was struggling in a democratic way peacefully. But still, he was arrested and labeled with so-called separatism and got life sentence in prison. So China wanted, the CCP wanted to silence him behind the bars because they thought he was a
perhaps invite our partner as well, because my one, Yusufi, perhaps because I think China is not only an issue for Uyghurs, but also of neighboring countries. So my one, if you wanted to perhaps share some of your comments, my one is also, by the way, from the Pashto community in Pakistan.
Just I say a few words. Good luck, bonjour, salam alaikum, thank you, Mr. Tulkun, Mr. Togunjan, Mr. Zubatri. Dear Uyghur brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Togunjan Audi, President of the Uyghur Congress, for the opportunity to talk in this estimated form. My name is Maiwan Yusufi, and I'm proudly serve as the chairman from Yawropa, since an organization dedicated to advocate for the right and representation of Kashmir in Afghanistan and Pakistan, both sides of the Duran line. And I stand before you today to share our shared struggle with our Uyghur brothers who are bravely resisting the operation regime in China, which has subjected the Uyghur people to systematically dictator regime and decline. So we are simply paying my colleague I would like to give the opportunity to share it.
Yes, thank you. On the members of the European Parliament, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak today on behalf of the Kashmir movement, or PTM. We are here to raise awareness of the great human rights violations being committed by Pakistan military against Kashmir people. In recent weeks, Pakistani armed strikes in the Tira Valley killed civilians, including children.
Drone attacks have become more frequent, also claiming many civilian lives. At the same time, thousands of Pashtuns remain disappeared, abducted by military and intelligence services. Our movement has documented this crisis through rigorous academic research. The report we bring to you today, Pashtun Missing Person and Great Human Rights Crisis in Pakistan, is based on the most comprehensive data set available. We have recorded 4,637 cases. Of these, 4,319 remain missing, with South Waziristan alone accounting for nearly 3,500. The alleged perpetrators are overwhelmingly state actors, the Pakistani Army and intelligence agencies. These are not isolated cases. They are part of a pattern, repeated military operations in the tribal areas that have killed tens of thousands and displaced millions. The victims are ordinary civilians, laborers, students, farmers, shopkeepers. This is not counterterrorism. This is collective punishment. At the same time, PKM itself faces severe repression. Peaceful protests are disrupted, activists are detained, and our leaders language in jail. Among them are Ali Wazir and Haji Samad, who remain behind bars simply for speaking the truth. We call on this parliament to hold Pakistan accountable. Since 2014, Pakistan has enjoyed the EU's GSP Plus trade status, which is conditional on compliance with human rights conventions. This evidence shows that Pakistan is systematically violating those obligations. We should respectfully submit that Pakistan does not deserve this privilege, and its GSP Plus status should be revoked until it complies with international human rights law. Honorable members, our appeal is simple. Use your voice and influence to stand with the victims of enforced disappearances, to demand the release of our leaders, and to ensure that human rights are not sacrificed for trade preferences. We, the Pashtun people, want nothing more than to live simply in dignity, freedom, and peace. With your solidarity, we believe this is possible. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much. Any other comments or questions from the audience? Yes, please. If you could also quickly.
Hi, thank you for the presentation of this conference. The Joint organized the risk of genocide in 2021. As the Joint citizens, we still continue to organize protestations, conferences, but I would like to know what political actions we can ask to our MPs Belgium to act soon.
Anyone in the panel wants to answer the question? Perhaps I think yeah, that's a good question, and I think these things are still key for raising with MPs, local elected officials. I think in terms of the tangible demands that you can perhaps table or ask is protecting the diaspora community. So especially here in Belgium, we have a sizable diaspora community. You can speak. Some of them are here today, so you're welcome to engage with them and learn about some of their challenges. But I think one of the key challenges that all Uyghur diaspora communities face is the rise of transnational repression. So protecting Uyghurs who are living in Belgium, for example, from the persecution, monitoring, and harassment of the Chinese government, whether it's through their local embassy here, their consulate in Belgium, or even through proxies. It could be through Chinese diaspora groups, Chinese students, or even just digital transnational repression. So I think developing tools and resources, allocating resources within the Belgian government to assist and help Uyghurs when they actually need it, because we are documenting a rise in terms of transnational repression. Uyghurs who are being monitored, surveilled, harassed here on Belgian soil, which is of course an infringement on their rights as Belgian citizen. So I think this is a really complete demand that you could perhaps go for. Another thing is in terms of also the import of products that are coming from China, is they're linked to forced labor. I mean, this is something that is very, I think that should be very basic. We have existing legislation, especially in the EU. Last year, it was two new legislation that were adopted, the forced labor regulation as well as the corporate sustainability due diligence directive. So I think with both of these laws now, member states have to also adopt it within their national context and legal frameworks. So this is perhaps another area where you could also make a tangible ask. Thank you. Other questions? If not, we'll be closing this today's roundtable. So I will just, before I close it, I want to read a statement from the Vice President of the European Parliament, MEP Pina Ishirno, who could not be with us today as she has a conflicting meeting, but her assistants are here and they've delivered the statement. So I'll just read it out loud. Dear friends and brave representatives of the Uyghur community, 70 years after the creation of the so-called Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region, we are not witnessing autonomy, but the systematic erosion of Uyghur rights. Mass arbitrary detention, forced labor, the destruction of religious and cultural life, and across the board digital surveillance have replaced freedom and dignity. Xi Jinping's recent visit to Urumqi, presented as a celebration, was in reality a propaganda display that seeks to mask crimes against humanity with fake images of harmony. As we can see, China continues to align itself with autocrats around the world, including Putin and Kim Jong-un. It is clear that China aims at deepening global authoritarianism. This behavior undermines international efforts to promote justice, accountability, and respect for human rights. As Europeans, we cannot look away. The European Parliament has already spoken out. Over the years, we kept supporting resolutions demanding the closure of internment camps, the imposition of sanctions on those responsible, and the recognition of these abuses as crimes against humanity and potential precursor to genocide. But our responsibility is to ensure these words lead to action. Closing our markets to goods produced with forced labor, pressing for accountability at the UN and beyond, and using our political and diplomatic voice to hold Beijing accountable. By defending Uyghur rights, we defend the universality of human rights and the very values on which Europe is built. The Uyghur struggle is not a distant issue. It is a test of our collective integrity. The future will judge us by our actions, not our words. Let history remember Europe as standing firm against tyranny and standing with Uyghurs. So, yes, Lucia.
Thank you to Ratai for reading it. She couldn't come and she always supports you. We had you and Dolkun coming to the entertaining a few days ago, actually. We try always to give you the platform. One thing that we wanted to tell you is that we are monitoring very closely the sanctions that the 19 package of sanctions that the European Union will have towards Russia. We will know that we're going to be including different companies and entities in China. So we know very well that they are trying to bypass our sanctions, and so we will keep doing that and keep trying to have as many Chinese entities as possible that are included complicit in this reflection towards yourself and what they are doing with Putin. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucia, and of course, thank you to Vice President Picheno as well for her constant, steady support over the years. We are grateful to have allies like her as well. So, distinguished colleagues, friends, as we conclude today's roundtable, we are reminded. Did you want to say something? Oh, sorry.
Thank you very much. My point would be go to your question today. And I want to say that I had a list of more than 80 of my relatives, friends, classmates, and the people from my circle been detained. And the latest situation of them is I don't have any clue, any new information, new update of. I only know one of my uncles died in the camp 4 years ago, and my brother-in-law, after 2 years of my activism, and he was sentenced for 10 years. And before that, he was just detained and without any form of documentation. And for the rest, I don't know any one of them are released. And all of the Uyghur people here, we have that kind of relatives or people from our circle disappeared. And I don't know, I think they all have adapted somehow to this new law. And yeah, I used to show my list to different media from time to time before, but now I cannot even find it in my phone because it is not news. But the people are disappearing and they are not coming back. And of course, my uncle was sent home 3 days before he died. He was almost dying and then sent home, and then he died at home. And we see a lot of videos online about the Uyghurs released and sent back to their home. And we can see clearly from the video of their health states. So actually, the whole genocide is continuing, and but the whole world has adopted to this new norm. So I want this to be a reminder for all of us. Thank you.
I think that's also a story that is very common within the diaspora community. So if you speak to any Uyghur here who are present today, you'll probably hear the same stories. So as we conclude today's roundtable, we are reminded that the 70-year mark is not a celebration, but a reckoning. This so-called autonomous framework has, in reality, enabled the systematic erosion and genocide. And what was promised as a protection has served instead as a cover for repression, cultural destruction, and mass atrocities. Our discussions today have exposed both the depth of the betrayal and the urgent responsibility that it places on the international community, including the European institutions like the European Parliament. The lessons are very clear. Words like autonomy or minority protection mean nothing to us Uyghurs, especially without genuine accountability and the political will to defend human dignity. I want to really thank all of our speakers who made the time today to come, and also their participants for their insights and comments and commitment. I specifically want to thank Nurjan and her amazing team for their incredible support over the last few months for organizing this incredible roundtable. So thank you for that, and also for bringing all the
Thank you, team too, and
Yes.
perfect. Thanks.
the team was phenomenal. And most of all, I want all of us to remember those who cannot be here, the detained scholars, intellectuals, religious leaders, our family members, the millions of Uyghurs who live under surveillance and fear. Their absence is the silence that we cannot accept and we must not accept. 70 years of broken promises must not be allowed to stretch into 80s. The international community has the tools, the resources, the law, and the morality to act, and to act now. So let's not end this roundtable here. Let's continue the conversation. Let's continue to push for concrete, tangible actions and measures that will call on the international community to amplify Uyghur voices to protect us from tyranny at the hand of the Chinese government, to insist on truth over propaganda, and to work toward a future where justice and freedom are not deferred but realized. Thank you so much for being part of this conversation today, and we will stay in touch. Thank you.